As any film lover will undoubtedly already know, while today science fiction is one of the most famous and popular movie genres out there, it actually had a very shaky and rocky start. Way back when, in the 50s and 60s, sci-fi movies were often relegated to B and C movies that nobody took seriously, as they were usually extremely cheesy, poorly written, and suffered from extremely low budgets. Now, obviously, there were a few diamonds in the rough that have managed to stand the test of time, but it really wasn't until movies like 2001 A Space Odyssey and the original Star Wars movie that people finally started taking science fiction seriously as a film genre. And it was around this time, in the late 1960s, that perhaps the most perfect example of how not to make a science fiction movie was released, titled The Green Slime. And spoilers for this movie will abound, so in case for whatever reason you'd like to see it for yourself first, you might want to click off this video and come back to it another day. I'll be giving out no other spoiler warnings in this video. Okay, so just to give a quick plot summary for those of you who don't know, The Green Slime is about a group of astronauts living on an elaborate space station who accidentally bring a living green liquid back onto the ship with them, and from there the slime quickly proves itself to be incredibly dangerous, feeding off of the ship's electrical energy and becoming so out of control that the team fears these creatures could destroy the Earth if they aren't stopped before they get there. And if that plot sounds very similar to a lot of other science fiction horror movies made around the same time, let me just assure you, it is. But there is a reason why this movie is often singled out as the worst among them. Simply put, it ultimately has nothing to offer. The stakes don't feel like they have any weight, the science is uninspired, and the movie doesn't have anything to say. Now, it can be argued that a lot of other science fiction movies of the era suffered from those same problems, but the thing is, at least they were usually fun in a campy or so bad it's good kind of way. But that isn't the case here at all. Frankly, it's almost amazing how just plain lifeless this movie ultimately ends up coming across, to the point that it feels like even the monsters don't want to be there. And notably, there's also a love triangle that's given some focus, and if you ask me, that subplot perfectly sums up why this movie doesn't work all on its own. Because the actors have no chemistry between them, especially when it comes to Lucina Pal Lucy, and they just aren't selling the romantic tension. Really, it's so pathetic that it ends up coming across as completely superfluous, and like it was only put in because there had to be some kind of love story. And indeed, the Japanese version even omitted this subplot almost entirely, as they felt it contributed nothing to the movie. And what's really a shame about this is that the movie actually starts out pretty promising, to the point that some critics even noted that the first half wasn't actually bad. Because, the romance notwithstanding, that aspect of it didn't work from the word action, it initially presents something pretty interesting. You've got fighting within the ranks, them boarding the asteroid, which is pretty much the only time the movie actually manages to achieve anything resembling tension, and them returning to the ship completely oblivious to the fact that they've brought back something alive with them. And then the interest can actually give way to downright intrigue as everything starts to go wrong. People start dying, and we finally get our first glance at what these things are becoming from an extremely weird-looking creature writhing on the floor, but also quickly proves itself to be extremely dangerous. And I just have to say, that is not a bad way to set up a movie, especially a science fiction horror movie. As far as setting things up goes, they could have done a lot worse. But it's after that that everything falls apart. And this mainly comes from it feeling like the writers, as well as everybody else, giving up or not knowing where to take the story next. As the rest of the movie descends into needlessly long exposition, monsters that just don't look threatening or weird enough to be taken seriously, and not to mention the stupid camera won't focus on them, and audience apathy even as things get worse and worse. Seriously, this movie's presentation of how things descend into chaos and hopelessness for the heroes is absolutely abysmal and tone deaf. It's like trying to feel an electric shock with a rubber glove on. You know it's bad for them, but you just can't feel it. And honestly, I don't know if I've ever seen a movie achieve that dubious distinction so effectively. Bad things happen, but it doesn't feel that way. The actors are so stone-faced and lifeless at times that it makes it impossible for the audience to get invested. And a good example of this would be the death of the doctor who's figured out the creatures. It's so poorly acted, thanks in part to the design and impracticality of the monsters, that the audience just does not care. It's not even unintentionally funny, instead inspiring no reaction whatsoever. And again, what makes this even more glaring is that the writers were actually able to tell an effective story in the first half. They at least had the audience's attention, and dare I say it was even able to build up to something even resembling tension for a minute there. But then it all just goes out the window, down the toilet, and in the garbage disposal at the same time. Again, it doesn't even have the appeal of its contemporary movies of being overly campy or unintentionally funny, or of later low-budget science fiction movies and their ability to appeal to the, more primal aspects of the audience. Instead, all this movie has going for it after that is plastic monsters, pseudoscience, and acting that wouldn't even impress a burlesque audience. The tension just evaporates and is never even able to reclaim it for even 1 second. So, needless to say, it's kind of obvious why this movie is considered so infamous in many circles. And listen, I'm not one to just go around trashing stuff, because I understand the effort that goes into the making of any movie. In fact, I even feel a little guilty for ranking on it so hard. But I have just never seen a story build up to what seems to be something promising and just completely turn it on its head to the point that the audience wouldn't care what's happening even if they tried. As I said at the start, if there was ever a movie to demonstrate how not to retain audience attention, this would be it. As I said, the second half is so poorly done that it is impossible to stay engaged with it and remain invested in what's going on. Which then also reflects rather badly on the first half, obviously. So the point here is, there's bad science fiction movies, and then there's The Green Slime. A movie that does the almost impossible feat of getting the audience interested, and then dumping that interest so completely that it inverts it to the point that a person would have more luck trying to kiss somebody through a sheet of glass than try to stay invested in this movie. Now, who exactly is to blame here is something I don't exactly know, but I'd have to say it probably falls on the shoulders of everybody involved almost equally. Although, as I said before, this movie could be used as a learning experience on exactly how not to tell a story and especially build tension, so it does have that, I guess. But even with that, I must say that I firmly agree with the people who say that this might just be one of the worst science fiction movies ever made. Because for the 100th time, when a movie is able to so thoroughly destroy the audience retention and investment it had been building up, then you know that it's doing something wrong. Okay, I think I've bashed this movie for long enough. So now I'd like to hear what you guys think. Do you believe the green slime perfectly represents everything that should not be done when making a science fiction movie, or any movie for that matter? Or do you believe I'm being too hard on it? Please feel free to let me know in the comments. And please remember, you don't have to agree with any opinions expressed in this video. You can absolutely love the movie and think I've got everything wrong if you want. I was only trying to explain objectively where it screwed up so badly. And again, you don't have to agree with it. And thank you all for watching. I really appreciate all of it. And I hope to see you all next time.